Welcome back. And this is the last in the series of the TALLAROOK highlights. And today we're back and we're doing the rest of steep track, which is coming up from the bottom and climbing steep track. And then we're heading over to flat rock, and that will wrap it up at TALLAROOK. And the track you can see behind me there, that is actually Falls Creek Road. And the track that I'm on is the old bridge track, which I'm pretty sure is now permanently closed. It's hard to tell what's going on here because the gate was open to steep track, as I explained in the last video, and brought you down to the T intersection, which is bridge track. But I went the other way to where the bridge was, and it's no longer there, and that's blocked off, and I followed it all the way back here to Falls Creek Road, and that barrier was closed with concrete barriers too. So I'm heading back up steep track now. I'm heading to steep track, and we're going to head up there and give it a crack on the Bridgestone all-terrains and one locker. And it's been raining the day before, which has made that red Central Victorian clay nice and slippery. It's a little bit dry on the surface because the sun's been out for probably about 8 hours, but very, very slippery underneath, which has made it a bit of a treat for this drive, especially on these very road orientated all-terrains that I've been running in the last couple of videos. And it's a great little drive here up bridge track. It's scenic, it's overgrown, it's not maintained. It gets quite tight in spots with the foliage coming in at you. And this is the start of the first real climb. And at the end of it, you are at the intersection of steep track. And when you get up to this intersection, the first thing you notice at the bottom of the climb is that it's very, very badly eroded. And it's a really good indication of what's coming up on some of the other parts. But heading up steep track, there is quite a few bypass tracks you can take. And if you keep a lookout, you'll notice all the trees that have been rimbarked from winch cables all the way up steep track, especially on some of these big red clay eroded sections you'll see. And you can see old Disco's starting to skate around a bit on these all-terrains. And another thing too that I haven't mentioned is that I've only let these down to about 18 psi. I could have went out a fair bit further, which would have made it easier as well. But I just really wanted to test the tyres out and see how they went. And the mission, as always, is not to pull out the winch. But sometimes you just got to. And you can see here the tyres just slip as they're coming over this rock. They're starting to fill up with the red clay. It's starting to get quite slippery, especially on the rocks. And this can be a real dangerous hazard when you're out forbian on tyres that are full of mud. This is where the big fatties really struggle because they fill up with mud quite easily. They're like big beach balls on your car and they just sit on the top and they don't bite in and they just fill up with mud, and the only way to clear the mud is to just launch it and give it heaps of revs and rip everything, the car and the terrain and everything to pieces to get up. But that's the advantage of the skinnies, because they'll always drop down and bite into the hard ground instead of sitting on top of it. It's a bit different with these road biased all-terrains. She's a bit skatey out on them today, but you can see here how bad the terrain is. It's quite eroded at the start here. But what you can never factor in and film in is how steep this actually is. It's not the craziest steep thing you've ever been on, but it's steep enough that being red, muddy, slippery clay and then heading uphill, it's quite a challenge. And you can't see the big step up coming up from this angle either, but you've got quite a step up here, higher than a tyre, and you'll see the articulation on the other side on the rear of the vehicle as they come over it. It's quite a pull up there. It will definitely test, it will either stop or test bigger vehicles, heavier vehicles at that point there, and a lot of these points on this way up. You can see that cable marks around that tree there as we go past, but they're everywhere on this track. It's these heavily eroded red clay sections that sort everybody out. And you can see here as I'm coming up this part here, you can see it at the crest in the centre of the road where the two wheel tracks are. You can see that my diff centre's just hitting the whole way up. So what I've had to do here is basically railway line it, because it's too slippery on these all-terrains to stay out of the trenches. Because of the angle, you'll just slide back into them. So I'm only just scraping on the centre there. The 37 boys haven't ripped it to pieces too much at the moment. And I'm just knocking that centre thing down and making my way up. You'll see on this pass here, it's just enough to get by. And I'm hoping Greta Thunberg hasn't tuned in, because the old disco's rolling coal getting up here. Now it comes up this last bit and it sort of levels out a little bit, and when I say levels out, it's still quite steep, but it's not as steep as it has been. And then you come up to the next section, which you get into trouble again because it's heavily eroded and it's quite tricky to get around. I'm really relying on those disco superpowers of small, light and agile here, because up these sections here there's a lot of rocks, and most vehicles, especially the longer, the bigger ones, and that they have to be lifted to clear a lot of this sort of stuff. And the disco doesn't, which is good, because it's that 100-inch wheelbase, which keeps it quite well balanced. Now I'm at a bit of a standstill. I thought I'd just get out and have a look at this, because I had a look on the way down and there's a big step to the right of me that's going to really slow me down and try and stop me. And I don't want to hit it too hard. There's no point doing damage to the vehicle. So, by the time you've eased up on it a little bit and your rear wheels are in red clay, especially on these all-terrains, it's probably going to bring me to a standstill. So I'm just having a look first to see if we can sort of have a crack at it, and I'll give it one or two goes and just taking it easy, and if not, we'll get the Matic out. And this whole section can be bypassed. There's a track to the left and it'll take you right around the whole lot. Okay, let's have a look at this now. And that should give you a pretty good indication of how slippery it is there in that section with the red clay. And you can see how it virtually stops the car, that big step up on the right hand side. But the other thing that's not shown either, but you could see it on the way down, is that it's that tight to the wall there on that left hand side, on the passenger side. It's just pushing the mirror into the door. Not too bad on the disco because I've sorted the side steps and that out to keep them off the wall as much as I can. But if you're in a standard vehicle, you could be doing some rubbing against the wall on that. And I know rubbing's racing, but the last thing you want to be doing is getting home and be hit with a big panel beating bill. And the old tyres are full of red clay now. Now, if I'd have come right back and took a big run up, I would have probably made it over it. Or I definitely would have made it over it, but there's no point smashing the car. That big step up would just put huge stress as it drives the driver's side tyre up into the guard. And it's matic time. And you can see that I've been taking dirt off the top of the walls there. And one of the reasons normally I'll take it from the centre of the track. It's nice and easy to knock it off the centre of the track just into the wheel ruts. But because it's a little bit damp, this stuff up here is a lot drier, obviously, because it's on a vertical plane. But not just that, for other people that end up coming down this track, it takes that, it tapers the edge in a little bit so it's not damaging the side of their car. So it's sort of two birds with the one stone. So now I just take off a little bit slowly here, just roll it down. I'm just going to go up and down a couple of times and just wheel roll it a little bit, try and pack it in a bit. I need a bit of momentum to get up on some of the stuff up near this big step. So we'll take a couple of passes at it and then we'll have a crack. And those that are seasoned campaigners, they'll see just how slippery that is, and that the wheels are full and the Discovery's still sliding around on all this sort of stuff. And they really are an amazing thing that they just pop out of here like, they're just an incredible vehicle. Most vehicles, when you're in a situation like this, they're just sitting on the spot. It's quite steep, tyres are full of mud. And you'll see when I hit this step up, it throws the vehicle around really hard. Now I've filled that. You can imagine hitting that full noise before filling it just would have taken its toll on the vehicle. And this gives you a really good indication of how steep this all is. Some people can get an idea now from the drone footage back down the face of the hill that it's quite a climb coming up there. As I said before, it's not the steepest thing in the world, but out there on all terrains in the red clay, in the damp red clay, it's quite an effort. And the Disco made it up, no worries, at 18 psi, and no pulling out the winch, which is quite impressive. And the thing I keep forgetting to mention is that, it's only got one diff lock. It's not twin locked either. And you can see coming up, see this big granite here. I come up and I hit it on the Discovery to come over it, but from that angle there going up with the drone to back to this angle, looking at it from the other way, you just can't see how steep it is. But the old tyres are just full of the red clay, so once I got on there, it was just like ice skating. You'll see now. There was no way it was going up, especially with one diff lock. but it wouldn't help with 2 diff locks. It's just, yeah, too slippery. Just give it one more go. You always got to be sure. Stick the tongue out in the other direction, and yeah, make sure it's not going to go up there. Another good one for seasoned campaigners, the old muddy tyres on the wet timber. There's nothing more dicey than that on the side of a hill. Okay, well we're just about up steep track, and we're going to head over to Flat Rock and have a bit of a look over there, the last bit of TALLAROOK. Do some of the sections over at Flat Rock that everyone rocks out with all the gear. The Twin Lock and the 37 Brigade, they all give Flat Rock a go. There's a good spot down the back there to have a bit of a play on. We're going to go down there and tackle the same thing in the disco with the bridgy old terrains and one locker. One of the things that's good to see with the social media on the Instagram site, I posted a bit of Flat Rock the other day, and got one of the guys commented, and he'd been out there in his disco unlocked and given it a go out here at Flat Rock, which is quite impressive. You know, it's good to see people getting out there without all the gear and having a crack. Now, I haven't filmed a whole lot from the main track out the back here to the back of Flat Rock. I've missed a bit of the section there, but it's, you know, nothing crazy. This is just sort of the last bit as it comes down to the section that's a bit gnarly. And I'm just 2 birds with the one stone, and here I'm getting a little bit of filming for the Instagram reels on the way through as well, just showing Discovery's articulation and just how it cruises across the rough. The old bus just soaks up all in its path. It does a really good job. And as I mentioned before, you know, it's pretty standard suspension-wise. It's got those EFS long travel shocks in the back, but the spring, it's only got a 50mm lift. Other than that, everything else is pretty much standard. Okay, that's enough showboating. It's time to go down to the business end. And you can get a bit of an idea as the drone flies out here. She's a bit gnarly in these steps here. And this is me at the bottom of it. And this is what happens when you forget to press record. You get all the way to the bottom and you curse. So this will be the first time of many going up and down here. And this time we're heading back up. I'm just going up there's a bypass track that bypasses most of the relatively straight and easy section down the bottom. It takes you up, so it's a good way to have a look, so we're just going to head up there this time. You can get some sort of sense for the incline here. It is quite a climb up, and it can be very, very difficult in the wet because these granites get quite shiny and slippery. And today's not too bad. Wasn't really skating around on them at all. Only broke traction just a little bit up here, but half a wheel turn. And it's pretty hard to see how tricky this next section is. You can see off to the left there, that first set of steps. I'm going to come back down that and you can see that in a minute. But this next step up around this corner here, it's got quite a rock ledge step around it. And if you're not careful about the way you come around this, especially heading down it, you can definitely tip her over. So it's just a matter of being a little bit careful. You can see the edge of that step there. So I'm going to do a turn around here. I'm going to come back down the other way for a bit of a look. So as you can see, working down here now, at this angle, driving ahead straight, it's quite off camber. So it's leaning downhill. You're heading out straight as it's heading downhill. So it can be very daunting, especially off that left bit I was explaining before. And you can see coming off these rocks, it's not too bad. As you can see, these are big steps off here. And it's a challenge, especially coming up. And the old disco gets a bit of a slap on the bum as it goes off the back of this on the big granite. They're big steps, that's for sure. This is a good view of them looking back over and how big those steps are and how steep. You can start to get an idea of how steep this section is. When I was coming up it before, you probably weren't thinking it was this steep. You start to get an idea now. If you look at other people's videos on this section, you can see the bigger rigs that are usually tyres frying and full noise by the time they're at this stage on these rocks. And you can see looking back, that doesn't look steep again looking the other way. But I can assure you it is. And this next section here, it feels like you're going straight down as you drop off it. That's how steep it is. And I bypassed out of this coming back up with these all-terrains on just this section here. I mean, it's not a hard section. Disco would have pulled up there easy if it hadn't have been a little bit damp at the bottom. But I just would have been running backwards and forwards up it, getting over it. There was just no point, really. It's pretty easy to drive in the dry. And you can see this next section here, you've got to be a little bit careful. You don't want to... you'll see I'll realign a bit here. But the last thing you want to be doing is popping the front wheel off there where you're not straddling that rut on both sides, because if you drop that passenger side front wheel in there, you'll be barrel rolling down the hill, that's for sure. And you can see how off angle this is as you go over. Can you imagine that front wheel falling in now? And the drone gives you a pretty good look heading back up here. Not so much how steep it is, but you can see the sort of terrain you're heading over. I'll come back up here in a minute and head up over this granite and then head up there. But this next section here that we are at, that really steep bit I dropped off, have a look at it from this angle. It doesn't look like anything, but it is very steep when you drop into that hole there. Like, there's nothing real challenging about any of this. Maybe a little bit something right up the top of some of these ledges, but you know, it's all pretty basic four-wheel drive. It's a good spot to come out and have a bit of a play if you're careful. But the only problem is in this section, if you do get a little bit carried away, it could be quite easy to tip it over. And I'm just going to stick to the left-hand side as we head up this time. And from this angle it looks like a walk in the park again. But anyway, that's the end of the highlight series from TALLAROOK. Anybody can head up here, and it's only an hour from Melbourne, the north of Melbourne. And it's a great day out. There's some really good tracks to go out and test the vehicle out, and it's not far home on the tilt tray if you get into trouble. Hope everybody enjoyed it, got something out of it, and I'll see you next time.